Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf HaYomi. It is Menachos Daf Lamed Aleph. Perhaps we'll pair together due to their shortness and similarity of subject material. We'll pair together the next two Daf, Lamed Aleph and Lamed Beis. So we begin Lamed Aleph, Lamed Aleph, 11 lines from the top. Back to items that were presented by Rabbi Shimon Shizuri. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Amar, Rabbi Shimon Shizuri, he relates a story. Pam achas, it so happens that once, nis'arevli tevel b'chulin. I had some tevel, produce from which truma and maser had not been removed, and it got mixed into a huge bin of chulin, of properly tithed kosher produce. So, minat-torah, midaraisa, really there is bittul b'roiv. When a small, portion mixes with a large portion, it becomes nullified, so you can eat the entire mix. But midrabanan, we say tevel is not going to be batel. Even a drop of tevel in a huge bin is not batel. One of the reasons given is because tevel has chashivas. Look, even a drop of it can become truma on the rest, so even a drop of tevel on the flip side, on the negative side, renders the entire mix asr. But that's only midrabanan. So midrabanan, you have to address the tevel that's within this mix and somehow separate your truma from that, but you can't find him. And you can't just take a sampling of the whole mix, because you might encounter the permissible part, the non-tevel part, and that you can't use as truma on the tevel part. You can't take from patur and chayv. So what do? You have to find some other material which has similar status to the material that's mixed in here, which, as we explained, is really only chayv and truma, not midrabanan. So you have to find similar material which is similarly only chayv and truma midrabanan, and use that to address, take from that on this, let's say this pound of tevel that got mixed into this huge bin. So you have to take other material and take up extra truma and address this pound to accommodate this pound of tevel that got mixed in. Okay, so you have to find other material which is only chayiv midrabanan, which has similar status to this tevel that got mixed into the bin, which is only chayiv midrabanan. Okay, so what do? So this happened to me once in Sarah Tev B'chulin. Ubasi v'shaltis Rabbi Tarfon. I came to ask Rabbi Tarfon what to do. Normally he tells me like this: in order to find produce which is only chayiv midrabanan, leich kach l'chol minashuk. Go out to the marketplace and buy produce from an am haaretz, unlearned fellow, which minat-torah is really okay, but midrabanan, we're concerned that perhaps the am haaretz had not yet addressed the truma and maser, so it's chayiv midrabanan. Oh, there you go, bingo. So this corresponds to the status of my mix, v'aser olav, and use that material to take maser on the mix. Because he holds doiraisa bruba batal. Really, minat-torah, the pound of tevel that got mixed into a huge bin is batal, and it's only chayiv v'truma midrabanan. And likewise, the produce that I buy from the am haaretz has similar status, because v'roiv am haaretz ma'ashrim, most likely. Right? Most am haaretz take off maser. In which case, minat-torah, it's presumed to be okay. It's only midrabanan that we have to take off maser from that material. So it has the same status. He's taking maser from am haaretz material, which is patur, technically minat-torah. It's only chayiv midrabanan. And using that to accommodate, to address the truma on the mix, which is again patur minat-torah chayiv midrabanan. Fine, that's a solution. Now, why couldn't he come up with a different solution? You should have told him, leich kach min oived kechavim. Buy from the guy. So the produce grown by a guy is also patur minat-torah and only chayiv midrabanan. So use that as your because he holds ein kinyan lo oived kechavim be'eretz Yisrael. A guy does not have the ability to extract the produce that he grows from truma. Lafkia miyad maser. He doesn't have that kinyan, he doesn't have that ownership, that ability to do so. In which case, produce by a guy is chayiv minat-torah. So it's a mismatch, because my mix is only chayiv midrabanan. Menachiv al Torah, and if he'll use that, it's going to be something which is Chayiv min HaTorah, something which is Pater min HaTorah, it doesn't work. Okay, so we use the Amaretz as produce, which is Pater min HaTorah, and use that as Truma on your mix, which is also Pater min HaTorah. There was actually another version that he told him to use the non-Jewish produce. Because he held Yesh Kinyan. According to this version, he held that the guy does have the ability, through his ownership, through his even Eretz Yisrael, he has the ability, to uproot, so to speak, the master obligations, in which case what you buy from him is really Pater min HaTorah, so using that on the mix, which is Pater and Pater. What about the Amaretz solution? It didn't work according to this version. Why couldn't he simply tell him, go buy from the Amaretz? Because according to this version he held, we can't just assume that most likely Amaretz was Ma'aser. It doesn't work like that. It's not a majority that it is so. So we can assume that it's, Rashi says, maybe it's 50-50. So we have to be concerned and actually treat it like Chayiv min HaTorah. So if it's Chayiv min HaTorah, you can use that to address something which is Pater min HaTorah. Okay, so in any case, what happened? There was a story that Reb Shimon Shazuri had some mix between Tevel and Chulam, which is Pater min HaTorah now. It's only Chayiv D'Rabbanan, and Ritafin advised him to go find similar material, which is Pater min HaTorah. According to one version, it was Amaretz material. According to the other version, it was Goyish material. Shalachle Rav Yemer Bar Slamya, he sent a question to Rav Papa. This statement of yesterday, the Amar Ravin Bar Chinan Amar Ula quoted Amar Chanina. That what? Halach Reb Shimon Shazuri. That in one instance we passed on Reb Shimon Shazuri, and all over as well. Not only that, Al Kal Malkaim, all over Shoshana, Rabbi Shimon Shazuri. Whenever we find Shimon Shazuri discussing halacha Kamaisa, we pass on like him. Does it apply to this case as well? After Nesarav Le Tevel B'Chula, Amalei says, yeah, and of course. Amar Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi responded, Amalei Mar Zutra. Mar Zutra had a question. He quoted, Kashi Bar Chanina Mesur. Chanina Mesur had a question on this. What's the deliberation whether we passing like Shimon Shazuri in this case as well? Of course, all over Pshita. Of course, me Ka'amar. The Mishnah Seinu, did the Rabbi Chanina say that we passing like Shimon Shazuri only in cases that he discusses things in a Mishnah and not in a Brisa? What's the question? He said anywhere, wherever you find a halacha taught by Rabbi Shimon Shazuri, that's how we that's the halacha that we adopt. Of course, in this case as well. Okay, back to halachas of a Sefer Torah. Amar Rav Ziri, Amar Chanan, Amar Rav Kera. Suppose there's a tear in the parchment running through the text. Okay, let's say it's between the letters, but it's running through the text. At what point can you still repair it? At what point do we say it's beyond repair? It looks unsightly. It's not proper. It's not zekeli vanveu. Amar Rav Zira, Amar Chanan, Amar Rav Kera, a tear haba b'shnei shitin, which only crosses 2 lines of text. Yitfar, it's small enough to repair. B'shalish, if it cuts into 3 lines, that's too far gone. Al yitfar, you can't tie that up. You can't sew it up. Amalei Rabba bar Zuti l'Rab Ashi. Hachi Amar Rab Yerim Difti Mishmei called it Rava. The Rava Hadam Rinan. When we say b'shalish al yitfar, if it's through 3 lines of text, you can't repair it. Loy Amar Elabat Tikta. That's only by an old Sefer Torah. Since the parchment is already sort of tinted, it looks old. So the tear, which has this exposes the fresh, light-colored parchment in the tear, will make it look, unsightly. But if it's a brand new Sefer Torah, the parchment is also nice and white and shiny. Last month, there's no concern; there won't be any unsightliness. And we speak about old and new. It isn't determined by age. Old doesn't mean old. When we say new, it doesn't mean literally new. Ella means like this. Ella, it all depends if it was coated with this walnut powder, which tints the surface of the parchment. In that case, a tear, a substantial repair on a tear, would make it look unsightly. Hadlei afitzan. When we speak about new, it means just a Sefer Torah was not coated, was not tinted with this, coloring, with this, gray material. Hada fitzan. We speak about old, it means old, or, new one, which was covered with this tinting. So whether it means old, actually old, in which case the parchment, sort of darkens and with time, or even a new one if it was tinted, would pose the same concern. Now, when we allow repair, it's specifically with sinews, properly, professionally repaired. You can't use just scrap threads that don't look nice. You have to repair it properly. Some of Farshim learn you can use proper threads, but it has to be properly done. We give it a limit, right? It goes through 2 lines, okay, 3 lines, no good. But daf l'daf, what if the tear was not on the text itself, was between the columns, and it goes lower than 3? It's more than 2 lines worth, but it's not actually running through the letters. Or ben shita l'shita, between the lines, so in the margins. What if it's a substantial tear, but not actually running through the words? Is that okay? Teiku, we leave it unresolved. Amar Rav Zira, Amar Chanan, Amar Rav. Back to mezuzah. Mezuzah shekosra shtayim. If he wrote his mezuzah in columns that only contain 2 words at a time, basically very narrow columns, that's okay, kshera. You don't have a minimum of 3 words like I say Torah. Here, even if it's narrow columns, it's okay. Now comes the question: what if he formatted his lines like this? Shtayim, the top line had 2 words. Shalish, next line 3 words. Va'achas, and the next line only 1 word. So it's 2, 3, 1. Ma was the halacha here? Amar Nachman Yitzchak, sure, Kolshkin, of course. Shasaka Shira. Now it looks like the Shira in a Sefer Torah, like Az Yasher, which is written in a similar fashion, like the half brick over the full brick over the half brick, right? So that's okay. Macy, here comes a kasher. You can't just write anything like a Shira, like a song. So in a Sefer Torah, we have parts that are written like a Shira, parts that are written straight about, right? So let's say he crosses over, Asuk Shira, he takes regular text and formats it like a Shira, or the opposite, Shira Kamoiso, he takes Shira words and he formats it straight away like a regular text. That's psula, because each section is meant to be written according to its guidelines. So how can we allow a mezuzah to be written like a Shira? When we say crossing over is not allowed, that's by Sefer Torah, which has both types. And each one is meant to be formatted specifically, in that style. But by mezuzah, we don't really have shira. So it's not like you have different types that you can't cross over. So it's really only one type, one style. If it's done like a shira, it's okay. It's Marnam, we learned likewise. Amar Bar Chana Rabbi Yochanan. Some say Amar Acha Bar Chana Rabbi Yochanan. Mezuzah she'asa shtayim v'shal shvachas kshira. If the mezuzah was formatted this way, 3, 2, 1, it's okay. Well, provided he doesn't design it in a peculiar way. Like a kubo, he can't make it like a tent, like a TP. So he'll have 1 word, then over 2 words, then next line 3 words. Look like a tent. That's not acceptable. Or the opposite. He'll go 3, 2, 1. It looks like a tail. Amar Chisda. So the last line of the mezuzah, right, is al haaretz. Al haaretz b'shita achroina. The end of Vayim Shemaya, we have Hashem will lengthen your days. Kimei hashamayim, like the gap between heaven and earth. Kimei hashamayim al haaretz. That's how long. That's how big. So the last words. The last final, line is al haaretz. Only those words. Ikadamri, as some say, b'soif shita. It's meant to be at the end. So left align, the left, side of that last line, and you leave the right part empty. So in effect, the words al haaretz will be right beneath kimei hashamayim. Kimei hashamayim, next line al haaretz. Ikadamri b'tchila shita. Some say no, it's right aligned. So al haaretz is meant to be on the right of that final line. So now Kimei Hashamayim is all the way on the left of the previous line, and over to the next line, al haaretz. And here comes the explanation. Why would you say either way? Mandamar b'seif, the one that says it's meant to be at the end of the line, left aligned, right beneath Kimei Hashamayim, that corresponds to the pasuk in Tehillim, Kigvoy Hashamayim al haaretz, speaks about the great distance between Shamayim and Haaretz, the fact that Shamayim is over the Haaretz, and likewise over here, Torah is promising longevity, Kimei Hashamayim al haaretz, and this expresses it in the utmost. Right? The way the Shemaim is over the Haaretz, so which situated above it at a great distance. Whereas the Shita, it says, the opinion that holds that you meant to put it on the right side, because that's the farthest you can get from the words Kimei Hashamayim. So the greater the gap, the more it highlights the distance and the longevity, the lesson of the pasuk, just as there's a distance between Shemaim and Haaretz. Likewise, Torah is promising longevity, arichos yamim. Okay, perhaps let's just continue on to the next stop, which is pretty much a similar topic. Amar Rab Chelboy, Chazina lil Rav Huna, the Karach la me'echad klapi Shema. So Rav Huna had his mezuzah made in the following fashion. So firstly, they would roll it up from the end to the beginning. So you write, Shema Yisrael Echad, right? And you start rolling from Echad back to Shema. So when you sort of open it up, it's in sequence. You see Shema Yisrael, right? That's how it unfurls. So that's number one. And also regarding the configuration, the formatting of the two parshas in the mezuzah, you have V'ahavta and then Vayim Shemaya, which actually in the Torah are separate. They're different parshas. One is in V'aschan and one is in Eika, but here they come together as one package. So we all know that there are different types of arrangements in the Torah regarding parshas, portions that are next to each other. Sometimes they're sort of clinging to each other. It's called stumais. So the gap between the parshas is meant to be at least 9 letters of gap, but they're sort of landlocked. So one variation would be of stumais would be that the previous parsha ends starts the line and ends right there, and then you have that little gap of 9 letters worth of parchment. Then immediately begin the next parsha on the same line. So that gap is sort of landlocked. That's called stumais. The parsha is sort of glued together. Then you have something called pesuchais. So picture, let's say, one parsha ending, middle of the line, and you have that gap to the end of the line. And the next, then you start the next parsha in the next line. So that gap sort of opens to the air, to the margin, and the parshas aren't really clung together. That's called pesuchais. So the question here is regarding Shema Vayim Shemaya. So here in the mezuzah, they're meant to be together as one package. You would think it's stumais. No, but in the Torah, the way they come in the original, right, in the original format, they're far away from each other. So perhaps when you import them to the mezuzah, they should be separated as pesuchais. No, according to Rav Huna, v'oisa parshas says stumais. He would make the parshas in the mezuzah stumais clinging together. Maybe becomes a kash on this. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. He relates to Rab Meir, as we know, who was a expert scribe. Rab Meir, first of all, in terms of the type of parchment. Okay, let's just get into that for a second. So the hide of the animal is a very thick piece of skin. It's called gvil. Now that gvil is split into two, it's sliced into two. The top part is called klaf, on which you're meant to write a tefillin. On which side of that klaf? On the bottom facing, the part that's facing the animal itself, the smooth part. Then duch sustas is the bottom layer. It's a Greek word. Duch, this is the place, sustas, of the flesh. It's lying on the flesh. That's meant to be for mezuzahs. And on which side you meant to write that? On the part facing up. So again, the smooth part. Now, surprisingly, Rab Meir would write the okay, first of all, you write on the sustas, okay, properly. Rab Meir says on the sustas, kimin daf, you'd write like a column, okay, like a narrow column. And the next part, okay, and secondly, you would have a margin. You would leave some sort of margin, not as substantial as the Sefer Torah, which is big and heavy, needs to be handled with a lot. Just a small margin on top and bottom for practical reasons, as we're going to see soon. And this is the clincher. The parshas in the mezuzah would be pesuchais. Pesuchais. He would sort of separate the parshas in the mezuzah, although they're together in one package. So you would think it's like sort of meant to be in one continuum. No. Amarti lois, I turned to Rabbi, Ma Tam, why do you do it this way? Amarli says, look, that's the way it's in the original. Because you look back in the Torah, the way the parshas come from, where they're imported from, they're separate, they're far apart. So I import them in their original format. So that's what Shimon Elazar quoted Rab Meir. V'amar Rav Chanan al Amar Rav. So Rav teaches us that we adopt this opinion. Halacha of Shimon Elazar. So you would think he's referring to the fact that it was pesuchais. And now we have a story of Rav Huna, who was a Talmud Rav. His mezuzah was stumais, different. No, my love, pesuchais. We're assuming that Rav's adoption of Rav Shimon Elazar's opinion is going on the pesuchais question of the format question, which is inconsistent with Rav Huna's mezuzah. Lo ya ravach. No, he wasn't talking about the format. Talking about the margins on top and on bottom. That's what he was adopting. He wasn't speaking about the formatting. V'kama revach. Okay, speaking about the margins. How much margin? He meant to leave on top and on bottom. Amarav Menachos bar Yaakov v'amar lo. Some say Amarav Shmuel bar Yaakov. Kumlei atva the safri. He meant to leave enough space for the atva the sifri. So atva the sifri is this like a paperweight which sits over the margin. It's like a long reed which is slit running through the middle, which is slipped onto the edge of the paper, which holds it down. So you need enough space for that to accommodate that tool. Okay, Amalei Abai Rav Yosef. Abai asked Rav Yosef, "Va'at le'tisbara." So you're not going to agree, D'chi Amar Rav Revach, that in fact when Rav concurred with this whole halacha, or Shimon Lazar or Meir, he was specifically referring to the margin, requirements, and not to the format, to the fact that it was psuchos. Would you not agree to that? It can't be otherwise. Why? Right? It can't be that Rav was agreeing with the psuchos aspect, because look around. The common practice, the common custom is to do stumos, and Rav always goes with the common minhag, with the common practice. But Rav Islam minhag, Rav attributes great value to the minhag. Whatever Klal Yisrael has been doing is assumed to be the correct way. Look around. What's everyone doing? Stumos. Where do we find that Rav would value the minhag? Rav. This is a totally different halacha regarding chalitza. So a woman whose husband passed away without kids, so the surviving brother, if he foregoes yivo marriage, he'll do the chalitza, she'll remove his shoe. Now what are you meant to do? A shoe or a sandal? Big difference. A shoe is like a soft leather. In those days, like a soft leather which wraps the foot. There's a concern about part of it being missing, and then it's an issue. The better way would be to do a sandal, which is sort of a hard material. It's a hard sole with straps. So which one do you do? Damar Rav, Amar Rav Kahana, Amar Rav. Here's Rav once again speaking, and he says, look, you follow the common practice. Even if Elio comes along and tells us to change the practice. He'll tell us, Cholzin bin. First he says, okay, you can do the shoe. We'll accept it, that's okay. Even though we're not accustomed to do it, but to doing it so. But if he tells us, but if he says we have to change our practice in Cholzin b'sandal, we have to stop using the sandal, we're not going to listen to him. Why? Shekvar no go on b'sandal. That's how everyone's been doing it. The minhag, the common practice, is what carries the day. Rav Kahana had a different version, a slightly different version, but pretty much the point is the same. If comes and tells us, they have to stop using the minhag, which we've been using, we'll accept it, fine. But if he says stop the sandal, no, we can't listen to him. Shekvar no go on besandal, because the common practice is a sandal. Apparently minhag wasn't really widespread, so if he says don't do it, fine, but sandal, that's been practiced for hundreds of years. And the question was posed, might be now any difference between the two versions. There's a slight difference. Minhag l'chatchila. The difference is whether l'chatchila we prefer, whether using a minhag is l'chatchila, if it's acceptable l'chatchila. So according to the first version, it seems like it wasn't really something you would do. If you tell us to do it, then it's acceptable, we'll do it. Apparently, until that point, we didn't really prefer that. According to the second version, it's ein chotzim. If he tells us to stop using them, apparently it was something that was considered acceptable. Okay. In any case, that's regarding the minhag. But regarding the sandal, clearly we see that if he tells us to stop using the sandal, which everybody's been using, we don't listen to him. So Rav attributes great value and weight, halachic weight, to the minhag. So if everybody has been doing the mezuzah as stumais, as contiguous, it's unlikely that Rav would adopt the opposing view of doing it psuchos. So apparently when Rav concurred with Rav Shimon Lazar's version of Rav Meir's story, it was only with respect to the revach, the margin issue, not with respect to the other question of stumais and psuchos. Allah shmami, no. This, in fact, supports our point that that he was only going on the revach point, on the margin, shmamino. Rav Nachman he says, look, let me solve this whole issue. Rav Huna says, do it stumos, and Rav Meir speaks about psuchos, and when the minhag is to do stumos, which way do we go? He says, look, and Rav, seemed to adopt the Rav Meir that you do it psuchos, and it's inconsistent with the minhag. So how do you work this out? So he says, look, there are two ways to do it. One is preferred. Mitzvah l'saysim stumos. L'chatchila you should do it stumos as one continuous, package. And that's how Rav Huna did it, and that's how the minhag hamokim is, right? The minhag Yisrael. V'yabdinu psucha shapridami. But if you do it psuchos, which pretty much is reflective of the way it's in the Sefer Torah because they're separate, then it also works. And that's all that Rav Shmuel Elazar was saying in the name of Rav Meir. You don't have to do it stumos. You don't have to do it psuchos, but if you do it, it works. Well, my psuchos, Rav Shmuel Elazar, when he says psuchos, he means psuchos. You could also do psuchos, and that's what Rav was adopting. So in practice, you meant to do it stumos, as the minhag is, but all he was saying was, look, it works if it's psuchos as well. Says the Gemara, Lema Masiyele. Perhaps we can prove this point from a brisa. That in fact, there is a mitzvah to do the mezuzah stumos, but psuchos also passes, but preferably it's stumos. What's the brisa? The brisa speaks about downgrading items of kedusha. For instance, you're not meant to change the tefillin shel rosh, the tefillin shel yad, because the rosh has higher kedusha. Okay, so in similar fashion, you have a Sefer Torah that is worn out. You want to salvage some of the material and cut out some of the parshas and use it as a mezuzah, as a tefillin. Can you do that? No. Okay, it's a Sefer Torah that wore out. Or tefillin that wore out. You can't downgrade it to mezuzah because that's a lower level kedusha. You can't downgrade from a higher level of kedusha to a lower level of kedusha. So that's the only concern, levels of kedusha. But apparently, otherwise, in terms of formatting or they're comparable and compatible. Theoretically, you could transfer from one to the other. The question is how. But suppose you're allowed to downgrade. Let's say that's not the issue. In terms of formatting, oisen, you would be able to transfer one to the other, really? Amai, how does that work? If mezuzah is meant to be psuchos, and back in the Sefer Torah, these parshas are written as stumos, how could you make a transfer? If in fact mezuzah needs to be psuchos. Says maybe you're right. We're not actually transferring the entire parsha. That wouldn't work. Talking about just filling in a line, a missing line. You have a mezuzah which is missing a line, so you cut out a line from the Sefer Torah and bring it over. So that wouldn't be run you into the issue of psuchos and stumos, just one line. Okay. Next question is again, if the issue would not be downgrading the kedusha, otherwise, in terms of technicalities, in terms of the technical side of things, you'd be able to downgrade. You'd have to actually transfer from tefillin to a mezuzah. But what about the different types of parchments? The tefillin is meant to be on the cloth, as we explained, and the mezuzah on the chsustas. Different types of material. We learned the brisa. Halacha Moshe Sinai. This was given as an absolute halacha. That tefillin is ala cloth. It's meant to be on the upper layer of that skin. Mezuzah is meant to be on the lower layer, the chsustas. Okay, so again, we have this thick hide. You splice it into two. Top part is called a cloth, on which you write tefillin. On which side of it? On the inner side, the side that's facing down. Cloth b'makim basar, it's called b'makim basar, facing the flesh. And the mezuzah is meant to be on the bottom part of the chsustas. But on which side? Facing the hair on top, right? Facing up. The chsustas makim seir. Okay, so again, tefillin ala cloth, mezuzah ala chsustas. On which side are the parchments? Cloth is b'makim basar, facing down. The chsustas, the mezuzah is meant to be on the chsustas, on the side facing up, makim seir. Different materials, different parchments. How could you switch? The mitzvah. You're right, this is a mitzvah, but if you switch it, it's okay. Vatani, we have a brisa which says they're absolute. Shina possible. If you switch anything, it's possible. But tefillin, if you switch the tefillin and do it on the wrong, then it's possible. But regarding the mezuzah, technically you can use the cloth that was used for the tefillin. Vatani, we have a brisa which says you can't switch either one. Shina bein mezuzah, ben mezuzah possible. Either switched is possible. As to the more either tefillin, when the brisa says either way, the switch is possible. That's by tefillin. So if you switch the tefillin, in all different ways, then it's possible. But the mezuzah can technically be written on klaf as well. What are the two ways that you can theoretically switch around the tefillin, which are both possible? The first deviation would be that he wrote the tefillin on the klaf, which is the right material, but makam seir on the side facing out, facing the hair. That's a problem. But the second deviation would be that he wrote the tefillin the sisters. Whether he wrote it on the sustas facing up, facing out, facing the hairy side, which is certainly a problem because that's even the wrong direction. And even if he wrote it makim basar on the side of the sustas facing down the flesh, which technically is the right direction, but since it's on the right direction for the tefillin, but since it's on the wrong material, it's possible. But again, regarding mezuzah, we have leeway, and you can use the parsha of the tefillin, which was written on the cloth for the mezuzah. By saying another way to learn the Gemara, Shina b'zeh was a tanai, that although the brisa does indicate that any sort of deviation, whether it's tefillin or mezuzah, would be a problem, but it's a machlekes tanaim. This brisa holds that it's a problem. We have another brisa which says it's okay. So according to that brisa, technically you can make a switch, for the fact that you're downgrading, the kedusha. Tanai, the sani of a brisa, shina b'zeh is a possible. Any deviation is possible. Rav Achamachshi says it's okay. Mishum Rabbi Achai Bar Chanina. Amal some say Mishmei the name of Rabbi Chanina. Fine. Next question. Don't downgrade. But let's say downgrading would not be an issue. Hamarit and Oisni, you could downgrade, you can switch from tefillin to mezuzah, vice versa. But we know that mezuzah needs to have sirtut. Sirtut is like sort of a scraped, like an indentation on which you write the letters. So it's meant to be sort of like an underline to keep the letters straight and in form. And that's halacha b'shmir Sinai, that the mezuzah needs the sirtut, which the tefillin doesn't need. So how can you take tefillin parshias and use it for mezuzah? It doesn't have sirtut. But by sirtut, Damar Rav Menyumi, Barchik, Amar Chamar Guyam Rav, Kol mezuzah, shein mezuzah is psulim. Mezuzah without sirtut is possible. Rav Menyamin Bar Chilki Didei himself said, Amar, sirtut shel mezuzah is non-negotiable. It's halacha b'shmir Sinai. Says the word Tanoi. Once again, it's a machlekes Tanoim whether in fact this is critical. The Sani will learn in a brayser. Yerem Mishum Rabbeinu. He quotes Rabbeinu. Tefillin and mezuzahs nichtavish lemin aksav. First of all, a sefer can write tefillin and mezuzahs from memory, even if he's not actually dictating from a text, because it's something like we're going to see in a minute, something which people know by heart. Ve'ein tzricha sirtut, and both do not need sirtut. So according to this, in fact, tefillin and mezuzah are interchangeable because they both don't need sirtut. But the conclusion is, tefillin leibar sirtut. There's no din of sirtut by tefillin, but mezuzah, yeah, boy sirtut needs sirtut. V'idvidim, both are nechtavish lemin aksav, can be written from memory, even if you're not dictating from a written text. By time of why do we allow it in these cases? Migros grisim, because these things are, commonly studied and people know them by heart. People are familiar with these parshas. There's no concern of skipping words and letters, so you can do it from memory. But although halachically it's allowed, the Mepharshim bring that l'chatchili meant to do it from the ksav like any other Sefer Torah. Amar Rav Chelboy, he says a story. I once noticed Rav Huna, Tav Yosef Pori, was about to sit down on a bed. The Sefer Torah Menachos, which had a Sefer Torah on it. He didn't want to sit on the same level as Sefer Torah, so what did he do? He removed the Sefer Torah and perched it on a platform with kafla kada. He took this kada, this pitcher, overturned it, put it on the ground, on which he placed the Sefer Torah. Varach Sefer Torah, and after which Yosef Amiti sat down on the bed because he held you can't sit on the same surface, on the same bed, which is the Sefer Torah. Upligad the Rabbi Rechana, and this is in the dispute of Rabbi Rechana, who says it's okay. You can sit on the same bed as the Sefer Torah. If a person will whisper into your ear, opposing this halacha with a story, in fact it was a story of Eliezer, he was sitting down on a bed, Viniskan, he recalled, there was Sefer Torah on it, and he got all agitated, he jumped up, Vinishmat, he quickly jumped away, and he sat himself on the floor. It looked like he was bitten by a snake, he was so agitated. So clearly, one is not allowed to sit on the same surface as the Sefer Torah. So he says, no, that's not a proof to this, because Hasam Sefer Torah got karkava. What happened was, Sefer Torah was not actually on the floor, or as some say, was very close to the floor. That's what got him all agitated. But otherwise, simply sitting on the same level wouldn't have been an issue, and therefore it's not a kasha on the halacha mentioned before, which doesn't allow it. Okay, Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmal Kosvei Geras Psula. If one writes a mezuzah haphazardly, missing some letters, like you would write a letter, that it's not acceptable. It has to be written meticulously with all the letters in place. My time, Asuk Ksiva Misefer, because it says Uchsavtam by the mezuzah, right? We have Lashon Ksiva by the get, because the Sefer creases, we have it by the Sefer Torah, Ksiv to come a Sefer. So we find that Kasav is synonymous with Sefer, properly written, formally written, properly edited document, and likewise mezuzah has to be properly written with all the letters. Okay, what about positioning of the mezuzah? Where is it meant to be? If you inserted the mezuzah into sort of a tube and hung it on the doorway, that's no good. It has to be on the actual doorway itself. My time will be sharecha, but it has to be on the actual doorway, rather than in this case, which is hanging on the doorway. We find the same in the Brayso. So he hung the mezuzah in sort of a tube, so he put it behind the door, not on the actual post, but behind, like sort of on the outside. So the mezuzah is meant to protect the household from mazikim, from evil spirits. Sakana. If you do it in this way, you haven't really fulfilled your obligation, so you're actually endangering the home because it's not protecting it. Veiba mitzvah, you haven't really fulfilled the mitzvah. But shal beis munbas hamelach, the household, the entourage of munbas hamelach, when they were traveling, and they would sort of stay overnight in a hotel, since it was a less than 30-day stopover, they didn't really need mezuzahs, but they would take along mezuzahs in any case. So you always put the kohes kain in their sleepover places. They would do this type of style. They would hang the mezuzahs in this tube. Although it wasn't really a fulfillment of the mitzvah, it was zeichel of mezuzahs. So to keep them mindful of mezuzah and connected to the ideals and concepts embedded in the mezuzah, avos Hashem, yichud Hashem, although technically it wasn't really a fulfillment of the mitzvah because it wasn't really affixed to the doorpost. Okay, one more piece regarding positioning of the mezuzah. Okay, so it's a mitzvah to place the mezuzah inside the actual doorway. Pshita, of course. Torah says, put in the doorways. Well, perhaps I would think, since Rava tells us that the mezuzah is meant to be as close as possible to the outside, to give you maximum protection on your home. Mitzvah anicha b'tefach hasamuch l'rshut rab. It's meant to be within the first tefach of the street. So, in the doorpost, but as close as possible to the street. So I would think perhaps putting it even outside, right outside, would be even better. The further you put it, the better. The point is no. Yeah, as far as possible, provided it's within the doorway itself. Okay, let's summarize the last two daf. We spoke about the halacha of the meisering, the potter on the potter, story of Shimon Shazuri. We spoke about repairing a small tear in a Sefer Torah, the columns of the mezuzah, where to put the words ala aretz on this side or that side, whether the mezuzah is meant to be parshanut stumos or psuchos, discussed the different types of parchments which are meant to be for the tefillin and for the mezuzah. We discussed removing the Sefer Torah from the bed, and we discussed affixing the mezuzah on the actual doorpost and within the doorway itself. All the best to you, and hatzlacha.